What's good, my lovely peoples? It's your main man Solace here, the humble servant of the life. Today I want to do this video called What is the Firmament? Now, if you're familiar with the Bible, then you know the firmament is what God made to separate the waters from the waters. Now, most men, even in the dictionary, it says the firmament is the heavens or the sky. And most scholars and smart men believe this to be correct. Now, I want to prove to you by using the Bible and showing you that the firmament is the land. It is not the heaven or the skies, it's the land. And I'm going to show you how men do not read with the correct understandings now. They don't understand things. Now, before I break this video down, I want to show you something very interesting in the Bible, in the way the scribes wrote. They had a certain style of writing that men now know nothing of. So when they read, they do not have understanding. You have to have a certain intellect to understand this book. Now grasp, I want everybody to go to Genesis, the first chapter. We're going to read the first 2 chapters and I'm going to show you something that most men miss. Now, let's read. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Now, most people get a little confused with what is form without form and void. Well, void is waters. What is void? It's formless. It is the shape of whatever it is in. But if it is in nothing, it is just formless and void. So you have to grasp. And this is why at the end, it says, "And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters." So it gave you the description of waters first, before telling you that the earth was full of water. And the Spirit of God was hovering over it. Now, most men or some men watching this will say, yeah, I already knew that. But did you know this? Did you know that when the scribe wrote this, the deep intellect that the scribe had, I want to show you something that no men ever noticed. A style of writing. Now watch this. In the beginning, God. Now grasp that. In the beginnings. The moment the scribe wrote in the beginnings, he took the conscious back to the beginnings. And began to break it down to you as if you knew nothing. In the beginnings, God created the heavens and the earth. First 2 things named. Then the earth was without form and void. He could have just said the earth was full of water. But if you have no conscience, you wouldn't know that because this is the beginnings. So not only when the author wrote in the beginnings, but he took you consciously back there. So when you're reading this, you're supposed to go there in your intellect to grasp, okay, this is the beginnings and this is why he is writing in this manner. Breaking it down, formless and void, and describing every detail of a thing to where a man can become confused. It is written in child's intellect, to where an adult man will become confounded. So it's kind of a coded book in a sense. If you don't have a certain intellect, you won't grasp. See how deep that is? In the beginnings. And then it takes you there. Mind you, nothing has a name. Only thing that has been named is heaven and earth. So it's a deep thing. It didn't speak to you as if you knew what water was already. It described it first. And then it named it. And now you know. So the scribe is writing it as if you know nothing. And you can't because this is the beginnings. So it's a deep thing. Now let me break down to you right quick before the video shut off. Y'all know how my shit do. Low budget shit. Now, I'm going to break down to you how the firmament is dry land and not the heavens or the sky as the dictionary has it or scientists and scholars have it. Now let's go to verse 8. Still chapter 1. We're not going out of chapter 1. We're going to stay in the beginnings because men read it from the beginnings wrong. And this is why the whole thing makes no sense to them. You have to read it from the beginnings right. Now go to verse 8, chapter 1. It says, "And God called the firmament heaven." And this is why men believe that the firmament is heaven or the sky. But it is only because men do not read with true understanding. See, this is the beginnings. God never said the firmament was heaven. He called the firmament heaven. And it confirms this for you because if you go 6 verses down to verse 14, it says, "Then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens." So grasp, the firmament isn't heaven. It is of the heavens or a part of it. So you have to grasp deeply. Men do not read with understanding. Because a man will read verse 8 and say, "And God called the firmament heaven," and say it is heaven. He called it that. He didn't say that what it was. But if you read right before that, you can gain understanding because he breaks down what it is already. So now go to verse 6 because it's a deep thing. I'm going to show you how the firmament is heaven, but you have to read. How the firmament is land, not heaven or the sky. But you have to read with understanding. Now go to verse 6. It says, "Then God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." See, a man has to read with understanding. He has to start from the first word. Then God said, and then he has to understand, okay, God didn't do anything yet. He is just talking to himself and saying what needs to be done. We need a firmament to separate the waters from waters. But we know a heaven or a sky, air can't separate waters. Only something firm can. Firmament. Only something firm can separate water from one another. Now, you have to use your intellect now. Well, what separates water from water now? Land. So you have to grasp. But the writer is so deep, he tells you that too. But men don't read in child's intellect because they forget this is the beginnings. You're not supposed to know anything. So now grasp. Verse 6. "Then God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." He didn't do nothing yet. He just said it. But then in verse 7, he does what he said. The same way you say something or think something, then you physically do it. So in verse 6, he said it. Now in verse 7, it says, "Thus or so God made the firmament." So in verse 6, it says, God said, let there be a firmament. Because he just said it. He didn't do it yet. Then in verse 7, he did it. Now let's read verse 7. "Thus God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven." So now this is letting you know the first firmament he made was between heaven or space and earth, because the earth was void and formless, and there was only heaven and earth. And if earth was void and formless, it was mingled in with space. There was no separation. So grasp. So now he said we need separation between the waters. We don't just need dry land between space and earth, but we need it within earth also. And the writer's going to break that down also. So now in verse 7 it says, "Thus God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and morning were the second day." So he made the firmament up above first. Micro, macro. As above, so below. You have to not just say it, but you have to apply it into the knowledge when you're reading. Then when you go to verse 9, he breaks down how he put the firmament in earth and what it is called in earth. Read verse 9. Then God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. Now, what is he doing? Making a firmament, right? So he just told you what the firmament was. You have to grasp. He never gave dry land or land the name firmament. He is just telling you, I am putting something firm between the waters. Now, as above, so below. Micro, macro. So the ground up above wouldn't be exactly as the ground below because of perspective of size. So it's no need to call them the same thing. So grasp. This is why he called the firmament heaven. Because when you look up, you see space. But you don't know what's the bottom of the top. Meaning, you don't know what's the ground of space and what's the sky of space because you're too small in perspective. So when you look up, all you see is your sky and then the night sky, which would be space, where the stars or the lights reside. So it's a simple thing. The scribe was just past your intellect. And he brought it all the way back before anything had a name. So it's a deep thing. Let's read verse 9 again. Then God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. So in verse 9, he made the firmament there, and it is dry land. That's what separates waters from waters. And in verse 7, he describes making the firmament which separated the waters of earth from space, because he made the firmament in heaven first. Meaning the earth still would have been void and formless, which is water. So earth would have still been full of water when he made the first dry land or firmament between space and earth. So it's a deep but simple thing. And then he goes to describing how the same firmament was made in earth. By gathering the waters together, and the dry land appeared, which is the firmament. And this is why when you get to verse 14, it says, then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens. Letting you know, okay, now you know what firmament is, and now I am speaking of the dry land of heavens, which is right above you. So when you look up, you basically see your ceiling, which is the sky. But your ceiling is another's floor. Deep. Now, then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night. He didn't say planets or stars. Lights. Letting you know this is life on the macro. And we are speaking about a ground that separates earth from the space above. And these lights are on that firmament. And this is how you have lights. Because the macro is walking around on their dry land as light unto you. The scribe was cold-blooded. We have to raise our intellect. This is why it is important to know a thing before you read a book. A book is not to give you knowledge. It is for entertainment to see how smart the author was. So when you read my book, you read it to know what I know, but you should know a thing already to know if I'm smart or not. So grasp that. You read the book to understand. But you're supposed to already know the life and understand so that when you're reading the book, you can understand. And this is why you don't understand the life and have the connection with the life, which is the mighty all, the thing y'all call God, the thing that I personally know. This is why y'all not tapped in, because y'all look for the book to give you knowledge. as opposed to having it already. You're living. You're a part of the life, the mighty all. You should know, but you don't, because you look for your knowledge from things that didn't create the life, like books and television. Mind you, the creator is all around you, still creating as he did in the beginning. So grasp what I am telling you. You can know as I know. Because when I say I know all, I'm not saying it with ego. I just showed you I know all. You have to read with a certain intellect. And to do that, you have to know already. See, I can read the Bible and it's like a children's book to me. I understand it no problem. You don't, because you don't have understanding already. Because you are looking for it in books. This is why when you read books, you don't fully get the visual. You think it's talking magic. When it says God said, you think it magically happened. Not realizing the next verse, it says, thus God made the thing he just said. So you supposed to know. You supposed to know the firmament ain't the sky, because air can't divide the waters. You're supposed to already know that the firmament is dry land, because that is what divides the waters all around you now. And you're supposed to just know simply for the fact that it says firmament. It's your main man, Solace. Please raise up just a little bit, man. I am trying.